Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I hope I am audible to all our audience. You know, this is a very challenging afternoon to me because of our unstable internet connection here. As much as we would our internet connection stronger, but capability. So just alert me if ever I am no longer audible to everybody so we can fix our system here. First of all, I would like to thank Indiana Aerospace University, to the administration of the school, and a special mention to Sir Adrian for your speakers in your series of webinar. I am not expecting because a professional engagement with other schools are also stopped because of travel inhibitions. I could not go to Cebu or Manila for some speaking engagement. To me like something new today for that very long time that I was not able to engage in activity like this. But anyway, thank you very much, Indiana, for the invitation. I was told put on how are we going to up with the different challenges that we have encountered that this pandemic has brought to us, whether it is in business, and most especially in the educational sector, in travel and tourism industry. Almost all of the aspects and walks of life in our country is greatly affected by this pandemic. That is why we have to be active and flexible with the challenges and what should be our coping mechanisms so that we'll be able to adapt this new normal. So, wait a minute. Dagdag ng slides. Okay, so let us now start with our inputs on new normal in education, challenges, and coping mechanisms or coping actions. So first of all, let us define what is have a common understanding of term new normal phrase or our present condition. According to wikipedia.org, is a state to settles following we are, this is what we refer to our crisis. When this differs from the situation that prevailed prior to the start of the crisis. So before the pandemic, we used to have the tourism and travel industry. We used to have face-to-face classes in our respective universities and colleges. And after this pandemic, there is a sudden change of our system. So the term has been used in relation to the financial crisis of 2007-2008. This was also used aftermath of the 2008 to 2012 global recession and this COVID-19 pandemic. This term new normal is again used. So this is somewhat like a cliche, like having a new normal to describe our present condition, especially that for the young generations, maybe this is still the first time that we experience pandemic, because I think the last pandemic was that very long time ago. Maybe we were not yet born. For example, the bubonic plague that have claimed thousands of lives before, we were not yet born at that time. And this COVID-19 pandemic that we experience this might cause a lot of adjustments in our daily life. That is why we are trying to cope up with everything. Now, how are we going to practice this new normal in general? You know, there are a lot of government protocols, national, then there is also protocol, we have the respective this COVID-19 gate, or if not, to spread of this. Very common to us, we experience lockdown when we have the enhanced some areas in metro lockdown because of the spread of the coronavirus. We also have some quarantines. Our government, even the municipalities also have, they prepare for accepting locally stranded individuals traveling from other provinces. Wearing of face mask seems common and that we in the future we still have, even if pandemic will end. The basic practice of hand wash no longer a new washing our hands. Only that reason of pandemic intensifying to wash our hands before 3 times. All we can remember it. Visit some establishments, there are wash nooks or washing areas installed in the lobby of this establishment in order to encourage people to wash their hands first before they would like to enter the building. And recently, as of September 1, is the wearing of face shield. In fact, this has also a lot of concerns, especially about the price of the face shields, because before this was sold around 70. CTI had belatedly announced that the maximum price for face shield should only be 50 pesos. That is why this also caused a lot of maybe a lot of concerns from our businessmen, because they buy this online at a higher price, and then when they resell it as a retail, they were regulated as to how much should be the price. And the physical distancing that we have to observe day by day. In every walks of life, in every place we go, we have to observe physical distancing. But I believe so, this is sometimes impossible, especially when we are in the crowd. Obviously, social distance attain. Now, as regards to our workplace, or even in our university, the new normal of that when we make use of Zoom, the most popular platform for meetings. Schools have their learning management systems that they have identified. And it seems that according to Dr. Henry Chan of the Manila Times, issued May 10, 2020, telecommuting has been a new paradigm in office works. Most probably because of some travel inhibitions. That is why virtual meetings among businessmen, among stakeholders are employed, because of the impossibility of movement or impossibility of going from place to place, especially when they are in a place under lockdown and they are still connected to their work, in their workplace, in the building. Is then the new normal in workplace nowadays is the employment, even in schools, since most report to work. We only have of our duties. So if that we need to call up our colleagues, then we have to uh, call them or just conduct some selected under extensions. Now, as regards to schools, even before the CHED has already pushes for flexible learning for higher educational institution in August. That is why most colleges and universities are already planning, like it was May or June, on how are they going to satisfy the government is still implementing learning policy for the higher that flexible components of this modality is the conduct of online learning. I believe you are conducting online classes also. For the basic education from K until grade 12, the DepEd also adopts what we call as the blended learning. It's like just a matter of the different terms that are used. For higher educational institutions, the CHED called it flexible learning. It means that there are several modalities called flexible learning of the higher education education, which is under DepEd. The DepEd and also adopt learning. The blended 5 modalities, and then we have the offline mode, then we have even a radio delivery modes are also utilized by our DepEd just to reach out those who cannot avail of the self-learning modules given by DepEd because of travel inhibitions. So these are the major changes of our DepEd and CHED that relates very closely to education. But what is really the reality is that schools and universities are now scrambling to enable digital and technical infrastructures that will support whatever form of virtual learning they will most likely to. And CHED and DepEd pushes for flexible or blended learning, in which one of the modalities that is planned by the government to offer is the online. Since this is the immediate remedy that we can offer to our students, especially in the basic education, by which they are banned or they are prohibited by the government to travel, like going to school. So the primary modality or learning modality offered by the school is the online. But because online learning will obviously make use of technology, and in spite of the fact that our internet connections in our country is not that fast compared to other countries, we might have problems encountered as to online learning. That is why as early as May or June, we undergone intensive planning as to how they are going to materialize the implementation of online learning as one of the delivery modalities. Now, the response of the schools, majority of the schools in our country, is that online learning becomes a substitute to face-to-face learning. Because basically, we cannot simply travel. It depends on local legislations about the schedule of when students can go out from their respective homes and go to school or go to mall or go somewhere else. That's only limited. In our province here in Bohol, minors can only go out Saturday, Friday, or Saturday. The rest of the week, they cannot go out and roam around the city. So because of that, the impossibility of having a we opted to have. And speaking of online learning, every schools opted to choose their kind of learning management to the needs of students. So I university your there primary LMS and for pre-recording of video hangout or occasional virtual meeting consultations. Process which heavily rely on internet complaints from especially from because of the beyond our control. Now, the country's internet infrastructure lags behind among those of contemporary developing countries in Asia, particularly net connectivity. And this has been the findings of a research by Romeo Agansalak and Yun Shon Kim published in Asia Pacific Journal of Business Review in 2016. So this problem has already occurred since 2004. An increased utilization of the internet. A research as of 20 in speed our feed for mobile and fixed broadband is shown here on this data. And obviously for mobile, we ranked 113th, the global ranking of the speed of internet. While for fixed broadband, we are in 109th place. This report is generated by Speed Test last July 2020. Can you imagine the rank almost on the bottom of how fast our network? That is why we have to convenience. I'm not sure this very moment internet here is also fluctuating and pop up and said that I do hope that I am you and my statements are also, although maybe there are some technical. So that is really a not and homes have access. This is common reality that we encounter today. If you go to the malls, laptops, smart, and would like to buy laptops and classes that are mostly offered by applying the law of there are only very low high demand of gadgets, then we observed it's increased. It had not increased for the last few weeks. So we can challenges the no effect from a health and health issue and education sector, the business sector is the one who consumers like us. Check. And homes have access to devices and this is why our goal of M.A.J.D and DepEd a flexible and did not leave students also to give to our gadgets or internet. Stop because of the allow them to lag behind learners who have access to internet. Let us discuss some normal because this is how are we going mechanisms. Well, matters more than ever. We are challenged of divine. That is the called, meaning there is like of those who can have gadgets and internet have not. So the class of learners are divided into two classes, have and those. But our government as equitable as possible. That be challenged to the planning for learners, especially because or maybe in your university, the number of on the learners number is not what we called as that in spite of there is that what we among those who have and those who have not by principle of equals has still have to address. Are we going to deal with our learners? And multiple should be considered. Digital divide. Those have not. Schools, their traditional deliveries, their so that both groups learners be students if we just simply say for example upon enrollment there is a survey that internet and devices prerequisite of enroll devices, then we will not accept is only offering online learning because the right to education in our constitution to consider this group of this is why schools have asynchronous. This is from the synchronous dungan or synchronous learning in their own. So example of this or for virtual or webinar like so webinars like uh, as synchronous. Students will have to consult time, but the challenge of real time if at the synchronous or live session, poor internet connection. Our is deprived opportunity because internet or the internet is null. So the learner is deprived from very hour of synchronous. Synchronous, we have discussion board or is that school of their in order that students will have use offline that period school as to assignments, for example, asynchronous. Synchronous is synchronous because of issues or problems, and that the students period of time when will say, for example, if then all uploaded on a Monday and they accomplished until. So it's up for the student different subjects because is asynchronous. Okay. Because majority of our sign, you know, this has among our state at the start of online received a lot of or complaints from the parents issues about online. You know, our teach online classes because but this is new to the student schools, and there are means that our leader. That is why it's very important. Engage the students by utilizing online discussion boards. Board is let us uh, teachers discussion questions is discouraging student to email and the teacher reply day late might feel frustrated. He has some questions delivered online, might have difficulty also. Lecture cannot as possible. You know, this is also one of the challenges experienced by our students when they ask the teacher and the teacher cannot reply promptly. Encouraging students to share their backgrounds and work experiences and conducting meaningful small group projects. Some on collaborative that when the teacher will give group project where travel is still prohibited, then there are some platforms online wherein the student, even if they are remote from one, example in Google Classroom, a activity to the students through Google Docs, and then the teacher will set that students can edit the file, and then all of the students can. So that is also a good strategy in order to encourage collaboration among our students, especially that collaboration is a 21st century skill. Now, recently, there is a rumor that the DepEd or the CHED might have a new guidelines as to the grading system that the schools has to use. That is already an adjustment of the outstanding grading system that we have in the last school year. It is because assessment and grades should be reviewed relevant to our educational institutions mandated outcome-based education. For the basic education, based assessment. This time of pandemic, students task that they are so that will share as to how is performance task since group physically thing that we have to consider. Grading system, the potential proportion, the grade situation seem to be relevant anymore because performance by students with, say, for example, in activities. Engineering students can be when they are, the problem is they cannot go, not allowed, even no face-to-face interaction. So how are we going to do that? We cannot have an authentic assessment. Now, in your studying avionics technology, courses like that, could they perform use of your laboratory? Face-to-face is not yet allowed. Return demonstration is part of the assessment. We have assessment and grades in times like in today's pandemic. Consider. Another thing that we have to consider, enhance or to make the partnership stronger. That, you know, I cited Society of a decided case in US. Right and duty to educate, parcel of youth rearing, essentially and naturally, which right and duty they educational institutions. Schools are given parental authority for the time to campus role of the teachers can exercise as a substitute of their but not parents. So ties is that is a matter of part. You know, it's a wrong notion. Some of the parents who will just come here and say, Mom, I think that should not be. It's like the parent child to school and how are they going to. The concept is there is between parents matter of that should be the common partnership that for is a partnership, then where parents partnership stronger of pandemic. I believe so. You have seen a photo in Facebook. You know, the mother is holding when it comes to education of students, full control in the conduct of, as if pay online classes cannot recite on behalf. I'd like to parents cannot or answer or behalf of their children are in actual custody of children in classes. Their role is only to facilitate using the learning or otherwise features. So parents, audience today, students, and you tell your parents that they class, nor they cannot the in behalf of you. You are the one studying classes, not you have to facilitate if in. But you know, this is also a challenge because they will co-teach as. So if that would be the case, challenge to be of their children because whom they can ask about their lesson. If you have difficult solving quadratic equations, if you have your statistic, of course you have to ask your parents. And this is that we have to consider. Use of the internet will make use of gadgets. Our privacy and security and of school is choosing that learning management. We have carefully examined the features, the same as other. They also employ LMS. That is why schools in your privacy policy or as online learning policy that this privacy, safety, and security are addressed. Month we have a learning policy in which committee members, since something legal in, I hope your school learning which address on the privacy students, but as well how teachers their modules are the one making their modules rights and with your modules if you are the one, or if you are using authored modules, how would you address that? So this is a top priority remote or online learning. Now, because of this pandemic, we need to be flexible, adaptable, and empathize what is going around of the situation. And I think these are also essential skills. You know, giving the students the opportunity to develop these skills would prepare them for life beyond the virtual classroom. Some concerns, for example, is the late submission of students of their online assignments. They submitted late. So your LMS notified the teacher who has control of the LMS or of the altimeter might give notification that a student has submitted late of his assignment. So how are we going to handle? Shall we be very strict about that? But it depends on the school, on what is your agreement or what is the policy of the institution. Because they might have submitted late for the reason that the internet connection is very poor. Devices at home. Maybe they are just borrowing devices from their relatives. So that's something to ponder upon if that would be considered. That is why empathy this time should be something like we will always remember every time we make, especially for school leaders, that we have also to think the welfare of our learners, especially in the private sector, that enrollment is declining when this pandemic. For financial reasons, students might be going to the public schools. And we know already the impact of these. There is a financial implications of when enrollment will reduce. So maybe that's also one thing that we are going to consider. Being adaptive of the technology we are using. You know, this has been a great challenge among seasoned teachers who are not on the middle age. Because time that they are not used to internet, they are not used to computers, but today they are forced to learn. So for teachers like us, we have to double also in using the computer or prepare. So key to survive. Just like as we study biology, to adapt, then might not survive in, because that's human. I mean, for being flexible of, if we fixed mindset, really, because our are used to routine. So we are used standard, then we would have a hard time the situation because we are used, especially if we are working. Maybe this time we have to be flexible. Now, yun of teachers alone this time, or even before, to realize it that turn of schools should be the, but in reality of the teachers alone. Parents, if the, you have to act children. Students today, you tap your parent to be your learning coach, problems with your study. Underestimate, because I know the studies. So a whole child approach to education. is defined by policies relationships that ensure each school in each community is healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged. And you know, to achieve this, it must engage all stakeholders. And one of the stakeholders, educators, families, policymakers, and community members. So these are the different classes of people in our society that have to take part in educating the child. And this is what we call as the idea of a whole child approach. Now, we are in the midst of shifting from the old normal to the new normal. The way we have transitions might. Why? Because of lack of flexibility, and if we lack these essentials, difficulty transitioning to the new normal. One of the learning space is to enjoy the amenities of school, playing inside their fetchers, enjoy in some mini park, chatting with friends or their special someone that is the usual atmosphere every day inside the campus. Sometimes students like you would like to stay in school rather than staying at home because you enjoy your school campus. You have many things to look into. You can enjoy. There might be free internet or Wi-Fi rather than staying in your home. So instead of going to school, learning now happens at home. So you might have some modifications in your own home as to where will you study. You might have put up some corners as your study areas. You might have bought ring light when you conduct online classes. You have all these gadgets in your home because your learning space shifts from the traditional four-walled and four-cornered classroom or laboratories to your home, to your house as your classroom. And maybe your other siblings as well are also undergoing online classes. Then you simultaneously take your online classes at home under the supervision of your parents. You know, as regards to supervision, we also have, especially you college students, you have this idea that you will not allow your parents to dictate what you are going to do because you are already college. Well, legally speaking, if you are still a minor, and you say minor, meaning you are under the age of 18, then you are still under the care and parental authority of your parents. But if your age is already 18 and above, you are already emancipated by virtue of majority, reaching the majority age, then you make decisions for yourself. The question is, you say that you'll not allow your parents to dictate you, to decide for you because you're already, let us say, 19 years old. But one thing you have to consider, are you still living with your parents? Do you still ask money from your parents? Do you still eat at your parents' house? So if you do, then maybe by humanitarian reason, just follow or obey your parents. Because even if you say that you're already 18 years old, your parents will, but you are still dependent on them. Even the paying of the tuition fees are still coming from. age of majority in you are still it would be better to still consult your as regards to your education. Now, for the school of the teaching delivery method, one size fits all. They hold classes at 140 to 45 students. Are getting busy emails every day from the students he has class. So that's an additional the teachers to keep on checking their uh, like every student to be answered promptly. But if the teacher cannot promptly or the query of the student, then especially if has some using the but I believe so every LMS parents to navigate those LMS. So that's a very good strategy of the school. Another training because the teacher is just audios, reading material, websites as reference, and the student feels like he is drowned of reading PDF uploaded by the teacher. This 1 hour lecture video of the teacher, which is sometimes the student get bored watching the lecture video explaining statistics, explaining mathematics. So that is sometimes discouraging to the students. That is why schools has to devise a sound online pedagogy such that our students will not get bored and our students are very creative, our students are intelligent, and they are wise. That is my experience, personal experience. I uploaded a lecture video in my Google Classroom, and that lecture video is 1 hour and 14 minutes. But 30 minutes later, I uploaded it. There is already one student turning in his test or submitting his online test. So it really, it came to my mind that this student is not really watching my lecture video. He is just answering right away the questions. Maybe he's searching the answer in the internet. Our students will just go to the internet and Google the answer. They don't mind reading all the references that we give to them. So I think that is not a good idea, huh? Students who are listening this time, this webinar, that is not a good idea that you will search the answer in the internet right away. Well, you must be very dedicated and committed in reading the learning modules uploaded by your teacher so that you will really have a comprehensive and thorough understanding of the uh, the lessons delivered by your teacher online. Even if you are remote from your teacher, you still have to read all those things uploaded. And there is another shift of responsibility in the teaching learning process. Family members become active learning process. In the traditional phase, well, the teachers are solely the mentors of the learners. But today, because of online children home, so the responsibility is now shift to the parents. Can parents refuse to educate their children and just say, oh, it's not my responsibility to teach because that's the responsibility of the teacher? Or if I will teach my daughter, my son, then I have to ask the salary of the teacher. I should be paid by the school because I am the one in charge of educating my child. No, that should not be the idea, because I heard some parents are having complaints like that they should be the one paid by the school because they're the ones educating their child. That is still not a good idea, because as I said in the previous slides, education is a matter of partnership. The parents and school have to be partners in education. They have what we call as the shared responsibility of educating the child. While schools are preparing the curriculum, they are preparing for the work of the school, that's the work of the teacher. Then the responsibility of facilitation. The family members will now act as a facilitator of learning. So that is our shift from the traditional face-to-face to this new normal in education. There is already a shared responsibility. There is also a shift in evaluation or assessment methods. As I said, from assessment of learning to assessment for learning. So between assessment of learning and assessment for learning. You know, this is just a matter of and for, but for educators like us, this is a very meaningful phrase: assessment of learning and assessment for learning, because technically there is difference here in the implementation of assessment as part of the tripartite role of education: curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. Assessment of learning, meaning what the student have learned. And now we have to assess them for what purpose are they learning. For everything that they have learned, for what purpose is that? Separated as formative and summative assessment. While for higher education institutions, we have the outcome-based education, which is an assessment for learning. So we have also to consider this shift. This will cascade down to the educators or to the school to modify their grading system. What criteria in the grading system is relevant nowadays? Those existing criteria we have in the previous memos of grading system are these criteria still relevant this time? So that is why we need to shift our and now, how would most of the schools in our new norm very aware of online education, because this is the most common platform that universities and colleges are adapting, due to the reason that travel inhibitions is by our IATF. Imperative for schools to teach online and acquaint their students to use their learning. So when the university or when the school has planned to offer online, they already train their teachers how to navigate the selected LMS or the LMS that is chosen by their school. And it becomes challenging, as I have said, it becomes challenging to the teachers in their part that millennial as the new generation age of our students. So it becomes important that teachers like this one, that you are using your portals, you're using your LMS, you're using Zoom for continue our mission of educating. You can also make use of OER or open educational resources. We have this DepEd Commons. Your school might have an OPAC or online open access library. You have your online library because you can no longer go to school and research, and you cannot just research anywhere in the internet because there are some websites that are not reliable. So there are free OERs in our school or maybe in the internet that you just have to access because some are given free, and this will help you in your research for the students. Now, blended learning and flexible learning are the new trends in most schools in the new normal. There are different modalities which are offered by schools to cater various learning needs. As I have said, schools are challenged as to how we are going to deal with both offline and online learners. And that has become a challenge to the teachers because of their preparations. Teachers have to prepare their learning lesson deliverables for online, and they have to prepare their modules for offline. That's not an easy task for the teachers nowadays. In fact, I have come across to one blog in the internet that a teacher should be included as one of the heroes in today's pandemic because in spite of this threat of the coronavirus, teachers and schools and universities are still able to continue their mission of educating the students in spite of the many challenges. That is why a combination of different learning modalities are catered by the school. Of course, the school don't want also to lose their students who have no access to the internet. I'm not sure if in your school you cater offline learners, those who would like to ask modules and reading materials because they have no internet at home, gadget. So the schools in the new normal is that blended and flexible learning has become a new trend to us. Another concern or another manifestations of schools in the new normal is that we are bridging the digital divide with offline learning methods. Since the biggest challenge for schools transitioning to online learning is the widening inequality of access to and usage of ICT. Some places are dead spots. They don't have even a mobile data signal. Are we going to address them? Is now an issue are there to address. Online education, schools, and there are difficulties technology. The slow internet, like today, the slow internet is really a challenge for virtual classes or webinars. Since we have a very slow internet, then that would be difficult to deliver our lessons online. So I think every teacher faces technology. I do hope in your problem about this. Internet is very challenging. Challenging to our lessons, and as we are online, the more it is challenging. And students as well by promptly because how are we going to cope? I have theories, the plans of the schools, the government. These are the new normal. Now, how, because coping actions is very important one. If we might have a hard time surviving for the maintain a even remotely a connection by through lecture occasional virtual would help connecting with. I think that is what we in our as well, also in our occasional virtual class at our internet. But I think the students seeing delivering than simply materials, uploading websites or YouTube videos. I think it would also encourage our students that show up in our videos. For fellow teachers, of course, fellow educators is also important. When there are technical problems, then you consult one another. When there are some referrals, you consult with your boss, you consult with your coordinator or with your supervisor. And in that way, connection with fellow teaching gives teachers plans, ideas, and so all new normal, some personal structure. So asking ideas from like how did you make how did you deliver, how do you address the learning needs of, so those professionals among that among educators as job as educators. Online teaching gives teachers a range of tools and share their lesson plans, and most importantly, the best practices. Online education is in your school, in our university, we also. So how are we going to cope up to navigate the LMS provided? I think you have been running already. So we're expecting that there are some how to submit or answer tests. You already get used to navigate your altimeter or alternative resource. So we also get used to our LMS because having LMS is that this is a technical job for teacher to correct videos. Then the students would have hard time access. Say for teacher is material in the Google Classroom, but upload assignment. Lesson deliverable must be uploaded as a material. Incorrectly upload a quiz assignment. notice that and where exactly in the buttons there the LMS it should have been uploaded. Comes the student in the LMS and not view the file, does not play, or the test cannot be this is among our our students are sometimes doing their online classes, the opportunity to have a good internet. If they do it late, then they might miss some online submissions. Time that they do their online class, the files, because incorrectly uploaded by the teacher also cannot promptly. So now the effect that to the students, education students, because students using the technology, but wide compared to the teachers. They always want an instant access, that when they cannot access it right that moment, they get frustrated and they become lazy, and they might do that again a days after, and they might get late in submitting their assessments or their assignments online. Challenge among the educators as well. Tips navigate the okay. When this online learning has become a trending, online stores, they have really a hard time accommodating all the customers kasi nagkaubusan na ng stocks ng this learning gadget. My you don't need to buy a new gadget as long as the gadget minimum requirement of your teacher. When the school or university will make use of this LMS, sometimes there is a prerequisite of the computer, the technical aspect of the computer. Say, for example, when we use this LMS, your computer must at least be Core i3, something like that, which is today that's already an expensive processor or laptops compared to the Celeron or the Atom processors. Because LMS also need a good computer hardware so that it will work and it will become effective. So what is important is that as long as your gadget is reliable to use, it satisfies the minimum requirement of your teacher, considering the financial crisis that we are facing, maybe you don't need to spend a lot of that to buy a new gadget. That is also, we have to consider the financial capability of our parents, especially for those families whose parents become jobless this time of pandemic. The stable internet connection, if we can secure it, then that is okay, if possible. But as I have said, our greatest challenge is the internet connection. We might have a good lesson deliverables. We might have a good and perfect LMS. We might have a good assessment methods. But that's only one failure of internet, then everything is already a failure. Because we cannot deny it that we use technology or internet in our online classes. So it would be better if we can secure a stable internet connection, if possible. I have seen some reports, maybe you've seen that in the reports on in the media, that there are groups of students in a certain state university, because it's only that spot that there is a good signal of internet. And what they did there is they just make use of uh, an improvised tent to get a good shade from the heat of the sun, because they or the whole day, so that they can access the online classes, because it's only on that spot that is having a signal. Lucky enough that you have a in the students remote areas, maybe they have a hard time accessing because they don't have a good connection. Now, students or maybe teachers for students, one tip is to select in our respective homes and well lit spot study place. Because if you will just study in the sala, or you will study in the kitchen, or you will go out to study in order to get a good signal, then there might be some distractions that would also affect your daily routine or your study routine. So it would be better you can select a comfortable workplace in your respective homes. Another is create a schedule. You know, our classes, we don't have a typical schedule like what. Then as you print class schedule, then for TTH. Today, most of the lesson deliverables are on a weekly basis, because teachers are also generous of giving enough time to accomplish these things, considering that you might be experiencing some internet connections. So how you are going to deal with that? Create your schedule. Manage time wisely and arrange tasks according to your priority. So my tip for you is you accomplish first those who have subjects who have earlier deadlines. And those who have a later deadline, maybe you can work it later. Because I believe that a certain LMS will no longer accept late responses. So if you are late, that will no longer be accepted by your LMS. So it might affect your grades, because that's a computer program. It will automatically accept responses, but when it's already due date, it will no longer accept responses. So please manage your time. I know having an online class is very challenging to the students as well, because sometimes you procrastinate. You always think that, mamaya ko na gagawin ang aking assignment, until such time it's already deadline. So, and you are rushing out these things, you can no longer have a good or quality outputs of your assignment, because you are hurrying up just to beat deadlines. Another is stay away from distractions. You know, our millennials today, like you students, it seems like your earphone is an important gadget, because you are fond of listening music. Your cell phones, you know, students, if you left your books at home, you don't mind. If you left your ball pen at home, you don't mind. But if you left your cell phone at home, you will really have to rush going home to get your cell phone. You have even spent riding taxi for that, because you have the urge to go home because your phone is left at home. But if your book or your assignment is left at home, maybe you don't mind going home. Or you might excuse from your teacher that you might submit your assignment or output maybe tomorrow, because you left that at home. It's like you can get a good excuse if these things were left at home. But when at home, I observed that students will really have to go home because you feel that your cell phone is very important. So it's hard to focus when you're surrounded by distractions. That is a reality. Seeing your phone might bring you to the urge to check your social media profile every minute, especially when you upload your picture in your Facebook account or social media. And you are very excited checking every minute how many who have liked, how many commented. So, you know, these stuff today are the ones that keep up the spirit of our millennials. So again, my advice to you, my dear students, please stay away from distractions, especially that you are working. Nobody watches you when you study online, because I'm sure your parents also are busy doing their things, busy doing their stuff, or surely they are also in their respective offices because they're working, and you are left at home doing your online classes. So I advise you to stay away from those distractions and please focus, because online classes are very challenging. No, your teacher cannot answer your queries right away. Okay? And then, very important is to submit your work on time. You know, some teachers complain, like in my department, because I am the department chair for mathematics, my teachers are sometimes telling me how are they going to handle with their students who submitted late. So I told them to please email the students and ask for some reasons why they are submitting their online activities late. And you know, students will just give a good excuse of having a poor internet connection so that their teacher will accept their submission, even if this submission you to avoid procrastinations and keep track of your due dates. I believe so. Your teachers are always reminding you to work and accomplish your assignments on time so that you can also submit work on time. And know your learning style. This is very important. Are you a visual learner? So that you can tell your teachers that, teacher, I have a hard time understanding the lesson because your lesson is just only audio and I am a visual learner. Or an auditory learner who just feel good listening the lecture rather than watching the video. Learner. You learn fast, have a hard time understanding the objects. One thing that you will consider. In free online assessments, if you are very curious of, you can take some online assessments if you're a visual learner, auditory, kinesthetic, or you like reading or writing. You learn best when you write. You know, there are some students that who really take down notes because they learn best when they have notes. There are students who don't like reading manuals. For example, those taking up electronics or maybe avionics, that when they read the manual, they don't like it. They want to see the electronic gadget directly and operate those buttons because that is their learning style. Diba? Like you, how many of you were able to read the manuals of your cell phone before you use your cell phone? I think nobody reads those leaflets included in the package when we buy our cell phones. We don't mind reading that. What we did is we press the power button right away and then simply practice navigating the buttons in our cell phone because that's how we learn best and we learn fast. So it would be better that you have to discover your learning style because at the time when you will have your review for board exam, that is the time that you really have to be sincere with your studies and with your review. And you know, that is also the time that you want to know what kind of learner are you. so that you can develop a certain routine that would really give you the best learning experience. Okay? And then I think your teachers are also inviting some online discussion forums. So maybe your teacher will say, post your answers here. You have your online discussion forums. Please participate, students. Your teacher might think that you are already gone in this world because you're already silent in your online classes. They might be wondering, oh, where is this student? This student is no longer answering the questions for the past few weeks ago. So always join online discussions, because this way you will feel more connected with your peers or with your teachers, and even when you are remote from one another. I know that excitement, especially for freshmen, that excitement of on the first day of classes, going to your new school, meeting your classmates, especially for college students who will meet classmates from the other provinces. So, you know, that exciting feeling is not around this time. That is why in your online classes, you do not meet your students personally. You might meet them virtually, or you might have stalked their Facebook, what they look like, where they live, where they come from. But the excitement of meeting them is not yet prominent this time. And as well as the excitement of seeing your teacher personally. I know students are very observant of their teachers, because they will give comment their teachers like, oh, my teacher is very strict. Oh, my teacher is very intelligent. These are common observations our students always make give to us teachers. So because that's impossible nowadays of the travel inhibitions, and we have to follow the IATF protocols that as of this time, no face-to-face classes. So it would be better that you have to keep active in your online discussion forums. Okay? Now, how does this coronavirus pandemic reshape our educational system? Now, education nudge and push to change could lead to surprising innovations. Universities and colleges are constantly innovating from traditional teaching pedagogy to virtual or to online. And public-private educational partnerships could also grow in importance, because there are also intelligent ideas from the private sectors that might also help our public schools and how to implement online learning. And downside is that the digital divide could even widen. Meaning, the more people who have, there will also be more people who have not, because this is a projection of the effect of our coronavirus pandemic in the educational system. Okay, so lastly, we have some thoughts from our people around the world. What are their thoughts in this pandemic? If everyone in the world is healthy, then we can collectively work towards the common good. At this time of great risk, we need to be resilient, self-disciplined, responsible, and caring for others. This is coming from a social worker from Mongolia. We need to be resilient. We need to be self-disciplined. Observe social distancing, then observe social distancing. Wear face mask, then wear face mask. Wash hands, then wash hands. A simple obedience of the dictates of our government is already a good contribution for every citizen to help this pandemic ends. At encourage learners worldwide to take heart and have hopes that we shall overcome, and taking all the necessary steps to educate learners and general populace on measures to take in order to protect themselves from this coronavirus. And a student said, never lose hope. Be strong and take care of yourself, and we'll defeat this virus together. And my words of advice is to work together to build a stronger generation after this pandemic. I know this pandemic has really caused a lot of changes in our life. And out of these changes, we get good and bad experiences. And we know that experience is the best teacher. So let's work together in order to build a stronger generation after this pandemic.